Welcome to It's No Secret, the oral history of Twang Twang Shakaboom. This episode, we take a deep dive into a single song about two of Twang's closest friends and biggest fans. As songwriter David Garza explained to bassist Jeff Haley and me while in New York City,
Tommy and Lee were like Romeo and Juliet for Twang. And I really mean that. Whenever I thought of like agape, like real love, I thought of Tommy and I thought of Lee.
Tommy Tenhet from Yazoo City, Mississippi, moved into the Taos Co-op in 1989 as a senior year transfer student to the University of Texas at Austin. He spoke with bassist Jeff Haley and me at his home in New York City.
I packed up my belongings that fall and moved, cried the whole way. It's a very welcoming city, and I've always called Austin the city that saved my life because it was my last thread. It was my last, I don't know what to do if this doesn't work out. And when I moved there, I was kind of very, very sad at first because I was I don't know anyone here. I was moved into Taos, which is full of these crazy people that I'm I'm not ever going to know these people. Turns out they all saved my life and they were the most amazing people, because I moved to Austin in 89 and moved into Taos Co-op where I met David. So I was starting the first of my three senior years as they were starting they were younger than me, But yeah, I had just moved to Austin. I didn't know anyone in the state of Texas. But I made a decision consciously. Born and raised in a small conservative Mississippi town. Never really felt comfortable, never felt anything close to I belonged anywhere. Attempted a couple of colleges in Mississippi. Things never got better. So then I just finally realized, I need to move away where I don't know anybody.
Among the first people to befriend Tommy was a neighbor several years his junior, Lee from Tyler, Texas.
Yeah, I met Lee, obviously living in Taos. I don't remember how I first met her. Everyone just kind of met everyone, because we all eat dinner every night together. It was a commune, basically, That's how I describe it a lot of times to people who've never been in one or stayed in one. It's basically, it is kind of like a commune for college students.
David Garza discussed Heaven Sent during a 2019 road trip with percussionist Chris Searle.
I laugh about it, but the whole idea of co-op living, it's kind of it's a big part of the whole aesthetic of what we did back then. Where we just did what we could. Everybody pulls their share. Everybody does what they can, and the sound of the record, this record in particular, it's very co-op-y. You hear every single instrument. Everybody pulls their weight.
I mopped the floors. Every semester you change. I think my first semester I had to mop 5 flights of stairs, which were horrible on Saturday morning when you've just been up drinking $4 Ernest and Julio wine till 4 in the morning the night before, And then the second semester I was lunch cleanup. But yeah, we all chipped in and did jobs, and there was elected things, there was some sort of a leader there, but he was 21,
And I was just so curious about their friendship, and I had no idea that two people could be so crazy and
love each other so much.
Yeah, love each other so much, but not be smoochy, And that was a really big revelation of a different kind of love.
The two of them in particular just had a magnetic energy. Really interesting, unique people that seemed to always know where they were. And
yeah, we were like brother and sister, basically. And people were constantly and people always accused Lee of that she really liked me or was in love with me. And the thought of that repulsed both of us because we're like brother and sisters. And and plus that first year was when I was realizing because I was just turned 21 when I moved there. I think I moved there a week before my 21st birthday. And the first 6 months or so, I was telling people I think I might be bisexual. And then by the end of the first year, I was no, I'm gay. That's all it is to it. And Lee was one of the first ones to know. And that was decades ago, and still no one cared there. Cut to a few months later, and then Heaven Sent came out, and then it was just there's a song about me. Not only am I fitting in and I feel appreciated, and finally for the first time, I feel I actually have true friends. It's a nice little ego boost, So that song meant a lot to me.
She has a good heart, she uses it well. She fills it up daily so there won't be any dry spell. He lives on the first floor, but I can hear him laugh on the third. And he laughs like a baby cries, like I've never heard.
Because I have a really loud, obnoxious laugh. And it was something I was always conscious of growing up and tried to muffle it because, like, I didn't want the attention. David didn't find it obnoxious. He wrote about it. Like, I mean, that was just, But it was just like one of those things that, like, I always was conscious of and made fun of about. Then it was, like, celebrated in a song that, that also included two other good friends and stuff. So that meant a lot to me.
This song, though, is more of an observation or a question versus a statement, Amnesty is like, oh, I know this, and always give you a little, this is what I know.
They just were really special folks, of all the people around everywhere. We had a few people that were really, really important to the energy of who we were or whatever. They validated who we were.
Leigh spoke to bassist Jeff Haley and percussionist Chris Searles in Austin.
It felt very special to have somebody think enough about you to craft a story and then present it to other people. That was a gift that has never lost its luster.
Bassist Jeff Haley and Tommy also reflected in New York City on another frequent Twang muse, David's girlfriend during the 1989-1990 school year, Gemma.
I don't think Gemma's really in this song.
I thought she was. There's something in it about her. I swear.
Well, maybe I always hear in my ear like the whoosh of a seesaw.
Yeah, that part's all about her. Yeah.
You weren't whispering in his ear?
Neither Leigh nor I have ever been described as whispering like a seashell.
You're right. Gemma's in the coda.
You have a beautiful whisper, and you whisper so well. I'll always hear it in my ear like the whoosh of a seashell, like the whoosh of a seashell, like the whoosh.
I never put any kind of religious stuff with it. I just thought of it as just the expression heaven sent. You know what I mean? Like, I never read anything.
The colloquialism
to it. Yeah. I was just concentrating on the fact that it was about me. I didn't really care what it meant. I mean,
she's not arrogant, she's not omniscient, whether or not he admits it. She is heaven sent, she is heaven sent, heaven sent.
He's not omniscient, he's not arrogant. Whether or not she admits it, he switches genders there.
yeah, he does some gender swapping. He was so ahead of his time.
And he's not omniscient, and he's not arrogant, whether or not she admits it.
They are the best because they're 30 years ahead of their time. You're talking about two people that married each other because out of love, to protect each other. Who does that? That is the most romantic thing ever. And to be in the middle of that.
How did you and Leigh come to be married?
Well, it was weird. Like, she always brought it up in college, and like, 'cause she doesn't really believe in marriage. I mean, she comes from divorced parents. I come from divorced parents. She'd never had a desire to get married, like, as a real life marriage or whatever. But she always joked about it in college, like, we should get married one day and blah, blah, blah. And I was always like, yeah, sure, we'll do that someday. Yeah. Like, just kind of brushed it off for years. Like, how serious is she? Which I knew she was serious. But then years later, I was now living in Memphis. She was living in L.A. And I had gone to L.A. to see my best friend from here had moved away from New York. And then for a while, he was dancing in Lord of the Dance in a casino in Las Vegas. So I went to see him for 10 days. And no one should go to Vegas for 10 days. So by the fourth day there, I had been, I had gambled, I had, gone out partying, I had made out with Lord of the Dance, like I had done everything you could possibly do in Vegas. And then Leigh and her good friend of hers flew up that Friday, and we picked them up at the airport. And it was kind of late, like 11 o'clock or so. I think their flight was late getting in. And we, picked them up and we went to a casino And I turned to Leigh and I was like, what would you think if we got married tonight? Because I'm like, we're in Vegas. This is where you're supposed to get married. And she just started squealing. She's like, I knew it. I knew we were going to do it. She turned her, what was going to end up being our maid of honor. I was like, well, look, and my friend Sean, the one I was staying with there, he was like, I know where to get the license because I just had to pay a parking ticket and it's the same place. So I'm like, okay, if we can do this, because I knew it was a 24-hour thing there, you can get married. And while we were riding there to get the license, we passed a chapel. And it had said that it was a drive-in, which sold me on the drive-in. I thought that would make a good wedding sign. And it said Joan Collins had been married there. And as a huge Dynasty fan, I was like, okay, if we can get that spot, if we can get a drive-in priest where Joan Collins got married, we will make this legal. So we pulled through the drive-through, and they were like, oh, yeah, come back around after you get your license. Just pull around as if you're ordering French fries or so, you know. So we ran, got the license, came back, and Leigh and I sat in the back seat of the car, and Sean and Tamara, that was the girl's name, they sat on the front seat. But before we did that, we went to Eckerd's or Walgreens and bought supplies. So instead of rice, we got some caramel popcorn. We made a bouquet out of loofah sponges. And I think I might have had some kind of boutonniere made out of like something. And then we got married. And I always wanted to get married to, like if I'd ever gotten real married to like someone who's actually a part, I would want Sonny and Cher, I Got You Babe as my wedding song. But we did not have that in the car, but we did have Cher and Peter Cetera doing that, after all that we've been through. Remember that song?
Oh, yeah.
So we played that song after Portia, the minister. She leaned her head in the car. We got married in a drive-through. And then the next day we went to the Paris casino or whatever and had our honeymoon. So we honeymooned in Paris by going and hanging out at the pool at the Paris casino. And then we drove to L.A. that night because my best man had to river dance on the Jerry Lewis telethon. So it was a very typical wedding, yeah. And then we stayed married for 5 years. And it was all up to her. Like, and finally one day she, announced we can get divorced now. It's been 5 years. And I was like, fine with me. Like,
They're mythic people in my life, and I will always write about Leigh, and I was always write about Tommy. Like, till the day I die, they're mythic.
I don't know if this story is true, but David told me there were 2 songs that are featured about episodes in my life. The refrain gets stuck in my head all the time because it starts with Tommy's name. Tommy's got a new work of art.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. That's
Except
a Love Beat song.
He changed my name to Jessica because he told me Leigh didn't have enough emphasis in it, which kind of stung at the time.
Yeah, really. Wow.
and that one was thrilling because it had my name, It was like getting a promotion. And it's weird, like I've met friends in New York who like I didn't know in Texas, but 20 years later meet people here who know whether it's David's solo music from Love Beat or Twang Twang Shaka Boom, and know lyrics to songs about me, and then they're like freak out because they're like 20 years later, and they're like, I have been singing your name for a couple of decades, and now we're coworkers, like. And I was like, yep, that's me.
It has a lot of feeling behind it. I don't think anybody who ever came to the shows felt a lack of emotion. Whether it was the enthusiasm of the audience and the sort of vibe that would come up in Liberty Lunch or at the Cactus or even the Texas Ballroom, which I believe you guys played once or twice, or it was the meaning you could take from the songs and the lyrics and the very heartfelt delivery. It was a really lovely experience to be part of the Twang era.
Yeah, the heart.
Heaven Sent from Me So Twangy is available from online music retailers. Please subscribe and share what you think of It's No Secret on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts, and follow Twang on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm Catherine Cuellar. Thanks for listening.
Tommy's got a new work of art. Jessica won't be there for the unveiling. On a distant sea somewhere she's sailing. She doesn't love him like she used to. Jessica says her life needs a jump start. All her friends say pack your bags to the car, run away. At the office she stamps envelopes all day. She doesn't love him like she used to. And it's no crime, it's no sin the prize? How can you tell the truth from a lie? I don't know, I guess you just try. How can you tell the worst from the best? I don't know, I guess you just guess. Close your eyes. Imagine you're far from here, improvise. Let go of all your fear, break the ties. Don't compromise, now you can open your eyes.
That's a whole nother podcast. We could do a whole one on me and Leigh.